Hello, everybody. So, I can't believe we're at this point in our Western society that we are literally on the verge of losing our most basic building blocks of our Western egalitarian culture of free speech. I can't. I mean, when I see what's going on in the colleges and universities, and see just this cesspool of cultural Marxist thought that is happening with the young millennial people, I just get depressed and cringe at every time I see this crap. I mean, it's depressing. It really is. And you see this professor who's standing up for free speech. He's not a hateful man. I haven't seen anything very hateful from him. He just wants to reserve the right to speak and say what he wants whenever he wants it without having to go to some tribunal and punished for speech, particularly speech against the government. I mean, that's just fundamental. No wonder things like Brexit are happening and Trump is happening, even though I'm not a fan of Trump. I'm not a fan of either one of them. I think they're both, as I believe South Park put it best, a turd sandwich versus a giant douche. I prefer the giant douche over the turd sandwich. I mean, it's like that's the reality we're in. I am not with these cheerleaders who are with Trump saying he's going to save us all or he's the Messiah or something like that. No, he's just the best possible alternative to the worst possible alternative that is Hillary Clinton that could quite possibly lead us to World War III. Now, Trump may lead us to World War III, but at the very least, he's pretty clear on him being against war. This is just insanity. And I'm in Canada here. We got this frickin' feminist prime minister, Justin frickin' Trudeau, the celebrity in chief, and literally celebrity in chief. The guy's an idiot. At least Obama is smart, somewhat intelligent. This guy is a absolute frickin' moron who's just parroting what he learned in colleges and universities that he's been in. He's basically a progressively created robot that doesn't have any sense of self-awareness, of thinking for himself. He's just, he espouses what he's been taught. And in some ways, Obama's the same. We've got these, automatons that are running our countries that are brainwashed into this progressive ideology, and they're fanatics. They don't see anything else. See Christina Hoff Sommers for the definition of what a fanatic is. So now that's all out of the way, I mean, I just want to get into a bit of who I am, what I believe, my politics, if you will, because I've changed a lot since, the last 10 years, 20 years, whatever. I used to be fairly conservative and fairly pro-war, believe it or not. I was kind of like raw Iraq war kind of, even though I was definitely for going into Afghanistan and getting the bin Laden. Definitely for that. That was a just war. But the nation building afterwards, why the hell do you go in and rebuild a country afterwards? Go in, unleash hell, kill the bastard, and get the hell out. Pull out. That's what you do. That's war. And you declare war. You say, we are declaring war on these people because they have done this. And then you come home afterwards, after you kick their ass. I'm so sick and tired of this progressive mindset of nation building. And, I would consider myself somewhat of an expert on the progressives because I've For the last 5-10 years, I've kind of been studying them. I listen to a lot of Glenn Beck. I listen to a lot of American talk radio, particularly Glenn Beck, because he's been on the progressive movement for probably since 2008. Woodrow Wilson, ugh, the guy was a monster. Ugh, racist, eugenicist, just terrible, terrible guy. Look him up, Woodrow Wilson. By the way, rated as probably one of the best presidents in history by, I believe, progressives. Well, who'd have seen that coming? The man was a monster, and I hate that guy. Well, anyways, in many ways, what is happening right now is the fruition of the beginnings of the progressive movement in the early 20th century. Yeah, I mean, they were eugenists. They they gave Nazi Germany the idea of eugenics. It began in America. It spread back to Europe. Well, actually, and if you really want to go further back, what happened is it started with, Nietzsche and then Marx and Engels, and it spread in Europe and then in Germany, and you had the schools in Germany teaching it, and Americans went over there to learn, and they brought it back to America, and then the progressives started in America. It festered in America, led to eugenics. Then it went back to Germany because after the war, the First World War, the Germans saw how effective propaganda was, and then they started. Then it came from there. Is eugenics, and then they used it to exterminate the Jews. And well, yeah, it's just a little bit of a short history there. But also, in many ways, if you want to go back to it, Hitler is a direct creation of what happened at the Treaty of Versailles and the humiliation of the Germans after World War I. They didn't even give them a seat, at the negotiating table. It wasn't about reconciliation after the war. It was about revenge. It was about vengeance. We will punish you for starting this war. Right? And it's just that's the progressive mindset. They're not seeking reconciliation. They're not seeking any kind of, understanding. Their ideology is right. And if you disagree with them, you are their enemy. It's the same. It's this authoritarian fascist way of thinking is, I'm right, you're wrong. You will join me, or I will destroy you. And you could see that in colleges and universities. They're right. So they say. There is no negotiation with them. There is no arguing with them. There's no debate with them. Hence, protests of free speech at Toronto University. This progressive disease has infested the world, all over the world. It's everywhere. And it feeds through the colleges and universities. It feeds through there. It goes to the media, goes to government. I believe Rush Limbaugh. Yeah, okay, I'm quoting Rush. But, hear me out. He calls this, calls it the 4 pillars of deceit of the progressive, well, he calls it liberal, but it's the progressive movement. The 4 pillars of deceit, what those are, you've got academia, the media, you've got science, and then you've got government. The 4 pillars of deceit, and they all work at each other, work in the circle with each other. They're all in collusion. Now, you could add one more to that. You could add big business, corporations, and you could also add religion to that as well, because there are a lot of religious institutions that buy into the whole progressive movement, like social justice as well, which is, I believe it's a combination of Marxism and the church, which is called liberation theology, and it teaches it's Marxist. It's all that poison that was introduced from way back, the Communist Manifesto. It all kind of festered from there, and it just grew across the world. So, about myself. In 2008, I kind of started an evolution of my thought into more of a libertarian from conservative. But even now, ever becoming more libertarian in many ways. But it's not just libertarian. I think it's more liberal in some way. I find myself agreeing more and more with a lot of the skeptics and liberals online and YouTube and like Sargon of Akkad and those people. Don't agree with them on the religious aspect because I still think that's important in society for morality, but I'm agreeing with freedom of speech, stuff like that, and the fact that religion combined with government is not a good idea. And I believe they call it a secular society. I'm not entirely convinced that a secular society is superior to one that is built upon Judeo-Christian philosophy, but I'm open to, I'm open to new ideas and reasonable discussion about such things. So, yeah, that's kind of my evolution. I'm still, it's kind of interesting. As I said, I listened to Glenn Beck, and I still do, because I think he is probably the most honest brokers of all of the talk radio people, because he's a guy who just doesn't follow the rest of them down over the cliff, to be perfectly honest. Kind of a skeptic himself, although he is a Mormon and a God-fearing person. But, I mean, he has a saying. It's basically, question with boldness even the very existence of God, for if there be a God, he must surely honest questions over blindfolded fear. And that's a Thomas Jefferson quote. And the question with boldness, speak without fear, is very Martin Luther King. Just speak without fear. Speak your mind. Speak what you have to say without fear, as long as it's combined with the truth. So that's kind of my thoughts now. I am, and what I said is I was very pro-war. I'm still for just wars, if such a thing is needed. But, like I said earlier in my statement, just war means you declare war, you go in, you get your objective done, and you get out. That's it. You don't stay for 10 years trying to build a society that doesn't necessarily want your democracy or freedom. Well, I've talked for quite a bit and ranted a bit here, but I wanted this to be more of a thoughtful discussion as opposed to a ranting and raving about social justice warriors or progressives or anything like that. So that's just more about my own personal beliefs on the world we live in. So until next time.